This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody? It is time for the week in review. Yeah, a little bit late. No excuses. I fell asleep. Woke up and it's midnight. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing it. This is just too late. So I apologize. I know I usually am very good about getting the week in review out, but this week biology or physics just got to me. My body said, nope, you're not doing it, and shut down. But here we are, a little bit late, but here nonetheless. And we have Raw tonight, of course. And by the time you listen to this, maybe you've already watched Raw, but we're going to talk about last week. And as we always do, look ahead and see what the heck's going to go on over the next couple of weeks as we go towards the final build of Survivor Series that is being headlined by the Bloodline versus Bloodline Survivor Series War Games match that we all saw coming 6 months ago, and that's fine. It's cool. It's exactly what we wanted, and it's what we're getting. But what we're getting here is a bit of a twist, not in Bloodline, but in how they're constructing teams. As we saw this past week on SmackDown, we saw a fifth member presumably present itself here with the Bloodline 2.0. That person's name is Bronson Reed. And I was very adamant, if you go back and listen, that Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins should not get involved in any of the Bloodline stuff. They have a very nice program, fun program going on separately on Raw. At this point, we can confirm that the draft rules are completely out the window. No one's bringing them up at all anymore. And that's a shame under Triple H, who I thought would be more respectful of their brand rules, where Vince was not. It seems as if Triple H's regime has adopted the disrespect of their own rules, which is a shame. It's a shame, in not just that he didn't not do what Vince did, but that the brand rules in themselves should have more respect, because it creates a sense of trust among fans that you're not just going to cross over because you need to, because storyline, and that you don't have the respect to even explain to fans why someone's there or acknowledge that they shouldn't be there. They're just there now. Everybody that's involved in the Bloodline story has apparently immunity from any of the draft rules, and it really hurts themselves. I know that they're doing it in the moment because they don't want to have to think about the intricacies of trying to subvert their own rules and all the little rabbit holes you could go down. And I would honestly be fine with just them explaining how, yeah, they get a one-time pass, or the GMs have just said this is okay. They've agreed on this storyline because of its magnitude that they can subvert it, and that's fine, but they're not even acknowledging it. And they're hurting themselves in the long run by doing what they want to now, because when you have separate worlds of drafting, you think about potential matchups, and it does feel like they're their own separate total worlds. But when there's constant crossover, you don't get that magical thought in your head of who could face who, and what if this person came over? What about a WrestleMania match between these two people? And I know they do it because they don't want to have to deal with it, and they just want the best product now. But there's really drawbacks here, and I may be speaking into the void and yelling into the void about this, but I just wanted to talk about that up front, because it's getting worse by the week of who appears where and why and how they're there, and there's no explanation. I know that most of you don't care, and you just get the match you want, and Sammy's now there on SmackDown, and Bronson Reed is now there, who I'll talk about in a minute. But I really believe, because I've seen it work in years past, where drafting, when you do it right and you respect your own rules, have really positive outcomes with wrestlers that you think about who could be where, and WrestleMania matchups, even Royal Rumble confrontations, which now the Rumble magic has kind of been taken out when you look at it, because you're looking at it and saying, oh yeah, well, we see them kind of mix it up on a weekly basis anyway. The Rumble isn't going to be as special because the crossover of Raw and SmackDown that should only happen at Rumble or WrestleMania is happening on a weekly basis. So let me just put that out front before I move on, and there it is. But all right, I'll talk about Bronson Reed in a minute, but But I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for joining us here. If you want to head on over to Patreon and get yourself an ad-free experience, you can do that at patreon.com/WWE podcast. You can also get a free trial over there and on my other podcast I do. It's called The War on Truth. You can go to patreon.com/The War on Truth. And we have a podcast there that's about politics and culture. This podcast obviously is about wrestling. So wanted to put that out there if you're interested in ad-free stuff and a bunch of other content, including video that is exclusive to the SmackDown tier and above over on Patreon. Okay, so Bronson Reed, presumably the fifth member of the Bloodline 2.0. And the brand draft rule violations aside, I have to put that to the side or it's just going to be constant complaining. That aside, this Bronson Reed edition is pretty damn good for his career. Bronson Reed may be winning an award of fastest ascent in 2024, fastest rising star rather. That's what they label it as. Fastest rising star would be Bronson Reed. He'd be in that discussion, no doubt about it. He's had a hell of a 2024. I mean, I'm really excited for Bronson Reed where, 2025 is going to take him. I could see him challenging for not just the United States Championship or the Intercontinental Championship, but rather the World Championships. Do I think he's going to win in 25? There's an argument there. I think he's got some more polishing to do and understanding who and what his character is and promo, progression and all that, but he's well on his way. And his program with Braun Strowman was great. Bronson Reed's program with Seth Rollins has been very good thus far. And he comes out this week to be the deciding factor in who gets the last laugh on SmackDown as Roman Reigns and the rest of his OG bloodline fought valiantly. It was a lot of back and forth. Sami Zayn and Roman worked well together. The feeling of nostalgia did penetrate my veins, and it was fun thinking about back to when that whole OG bloodline was running things, and it was great to see Jimmy and Jay back. There seemingly is no tension outside of a potential Sami Zayn cell phone issue, which I will get to because that is like blowing up the internet of the cell phone issue with Sami. And again, that'll be in a moment here. But Bronson Reed edition is a smart addition for the Bloodline 2.0. Great addition for the Bronson Reed career, just him as a whole. Do I think it's going to be a continuation or rather a continual alignment with the Bloodline after Survivor Series? Probably not. I think Bronson Reed, after he wins or loses at Survivor Series, goes back to Raw and maybe continues with Seth or maybe continues with somebody else. We still don't know where Punk or Drew are, when they're returning. I would think one or both is returning at Survivor Series. But when you look at Bronson Reed, it's great for his career. Is it a logical addition? Yes, for Solo and his group to bring in another heavy hitter. He fits right in. And the question now becomes, what does the OG bloodline do countering that pick? The logical pick is now Seth Rollins, who I was very adamant should not have any business in this story, at least from the context of going back on his word from Monday Night Raw. I said verbatim that it would undermine the integrity of his character, and I still believe that. So just because Bronson Reed is on an opposing team, why do you have to join Roman to attack him? Because I can see on Raw, it's been pre-taped and I'm not looking at spoilers, that if Seth Rollins does indeed join, and it seems like he probably will, how do they get there without impugning the integrity of Seth? What pushes Seth over the line that as a fan you go, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Not just that Bronson Reed's on the opposing team, but that you join Roman. See, there's two parts to that. You don't need to join Roman to attack Bronson Reed. So you're doing something you don't need to do to attack a guy you just could attack anyway. You don't need to be in the match to do it. So that's the thing, is you're still consciously choosing as a character to align with a guy that you were very, very adamant and clear about not joining to help Roman unless he was going to be stomping his face into the mat. So, do I think ultimately that Seth will join the OG Bloodline? Yes, I do. I have not looked at the spoilers. Some of you may have. I'm not. But if he does, and I think he will, again, how do they get there? Maybe they don't care. They just go, oh, Bronson Reed's the opposing guy. You have a problem with Bronson? Join us. And Seth's like, okay. Yeah, sure. That I'm convinced. The argument heard, and I agree. And I go back on everything I said last week. So I hope it's not as simple as that. But if it is, I think it hurts Seth's character a little bit in terms of believing everything he says, because if he goes back on his word the week after he said something, literally the week after, I really hope that they take that into consideration heavily, how they actually go back without hurting him. It's going to be a fine line to thread. So Seth, let's go with Seth on the other side. Okay. So say Seth's the fifth member. No Cody, no Rock. That which is a bit surprising. It seems that Cody Rhodes has got his own thing going on with Kevin Owens, and he confronted Nick Aldis this week, and we'll talk about that. We'll go through SmackDown a little bit later in detail. But we have Seth apparently on the OG Bloodline side, assuming, and we have Bronson Reed on the other to round things out. The question that becomes, outside of a potential Rock interference or Rock appearance, and there's a very strong chance of that at Survivor Series in 12 days, what's the end game here? What's the end game for this match? Who wins? And what's on the line? Is there anything on the line, by the way, besides pride? Nothing yet. And does there need to be? No, it's kind of implied that that it's pride on the line, it's momentum, it's a lot of storylines converging. It's the match we all wanted and saw coming 6 months ago. That's all fine and well. But what is the end game specifically with Seth and Bronson in this match? Because is Seth going to actually turn on Roman in this match as he said he would? That would kind of, to me, muddy the waters. Am I all for a Seth and Roman program? You're damn right. I've been asking for it for years and years now, and we get teases of it and glimpses of it, and a match here and an exhibition match there, and he interferes a little bit in WrestleMania 40, but there's never been a proper program in the last 5 years between Seth and Roman. It's impossible to believe, but it's true. So do they muddy the waters with Seth being, kind of turning heel and stomping Roman's face into the mat during or after the match? I hope not, because Seth has something going on great coming up with CM Punk. He still has to finish things out with Bronson Reed. Where's Drew? He could potentially return in all this. Potentially. Gunther's still on the table as a potential opponent for the World Championship. So I don't want to see Seth do anything with Roman yet. Do I want a program? Yes. But right now the storylines are running parallel. They're not intersecting with each other, and they shouldn't. Both of them are on their own paths with programs that are going to be high priority and high visibility, right? So they probably have a temporary alliance. Maybe there's a little bit of spat at the end, and that's that. But to me, it's a temporary alliance, something on the line here for Seth, some kind of incentive for him to join. Maybe there's something he can't turn down that you logically look at and go, okay, you can join. And if you join, you get this. Don't turn on Roman. And you get this. And I think that, if he's incentivized enough, perhaps that's a bit more logical, or rather convincing. All right, so the Sami Zayn debacle. He threw a phone, right? He threw a phone onto the couch. Do I think that was something that he did for storyline, or actually something that was going on in real life, where he's like, oh crap, my phone's going off, and threw it? I don't know, but the fans are really globbing onto this. And let me just say this. I hope it's just nothing. I hope it's nothing. It's a dead end story. I hope that Sami does not turn on Roman. Please, please, let's not do this again. There's just no need for it. I don't need Sami turning, and I know he's been a babyface for quite some time, so a heel turn, just based on timeline, is seemingly due. But I don't want Sami Zayn turning on Roman Reigns. It's not time. The Rock is the I guess the straw that's going to stir the drink here. It also would totally outnumber the Bloodline. And where's Paul Heyman? If Paul Heyman is the guy that is yet to complete the Bloodline, don't you need a little bit of time with the full Bloodline and Paul Heyman before you do anything again? We've already seen the implosion of every version of the OG Bloodline. There's no need to return to that. There's nothing to do there. What are you going to have him turn? And what's the logic here? You're going to have Sammy turn. Okay, he screws over Roman, joins the Bloodline 2.0. And his reasoning is, well, I didn't forget. You took everything from me in Montreal. You ruined my life. I didn't forget. Are we really going to rehash stuff from 2 years ago? Are we really going to go back there? Is that really the logic? Are we really going to prioritize bringing back things that have already been kind of concluded, already been finished? Is that where we're going? So I hope not. Maybe they'll blow me away with a story that I want to see again with Sammy and Roman, but I don't know. I have my doubts right now. So who is the fifth member? Again, if it's not Seth, people are speculating it could be Brock Lesnar, as Paul Heyman's number has been disconnected. As we saw at the end of SmackDown, Roman trying to call Paul Heyman, and his number is disconnected. It's no longer in service. So Roman cannot get a hold of the wise man. Will he eventually? Yes, of course he will. How does he get him? I don't know. Does he bring back Brock Lesnar to temporarily align? Maybe, but based on the rumors and based on how things are setting up with Bronson on the opposing side, it would lend itself to believe that Seth is on that other side with the OG bloodline. There's no other way here, I think, based on how they've structured the story. So if Brock's not the person, I do believe Seth will join, and you'll have Paul Heyman be the wise man once again for the OG bloodline, returning at Survivor Series. That's my guess. So if that's the case, then fine. I think we're still in for a really fun War Games match. It's setting itself up to be just a classic in terms of story and in terms of match quality. So there is that to look forward to. All right. Well, let's continue. And let me just say something about the women too. They have their U.S. title match, or they have their U.S. title tournament going on for the inaugural women's U.S. title holder. And I'm all for it if this works. I have been very critical of the WWE being able to successfully implement this based on the fact that they haven't done very well with the existing titles they have, especially the tag titles as we've seen. Okay. So you take that into consideration, but only as of late have they really made the women the main event of Raw, the main event of SmackDown. They've tried to let the viewers know, hey, we have this new U.S. title, and here is how we're going to prove that they are that we're going to take the women seriously. But I think right now it's a lot of optics, meaning I need to see way more than just happenstance that they are trying to make the women more visible in the week before and the week after they've introduced the new U.S. championship for the women. The key, and this is the Achilles heel for WWE when it comes to the women's division and tag team divisions as a whole, both men and women. The consistency is never there. I'm not asking 100% of the time for the women to be 50-50 exactly with the men. I don't think the women will ever get 50% of the television time if you add up the minutes consistently. I don't think that'll ever happen. Ever. And that's not a slight on the women. I just think that it's a man's sport. It just is. It's a man's sport that the women have made a lot of progress in and made inroads in. And the men who are fans of the show, including myself, fans of pro wrestling, have been very pleased with how the women have progressed from the late 90s to now, right? They've done very well. They've main evented WrestleManias. They've done everything the men have done pretty much. But it's still a man's sport. And I still believe that the men will, and you guys can say it's misogynistic, or I don't really care. It's not where this is coming from. It's just based on history, based on the entire existence of professional wrestling since it started, that you're going to have the men more often than not be the main event, be the biggest money drawers in the industry. It's just true. And you look at all forms of entertainment, all forms, and competitive sports, the men's sports are vastly more popular in terms of viewership and revenue. You even look at, movies. This is just the way it is. This is a fact. I don't care if it hurts people's feelings. I just don't, because it's just a fact. When you have superheroes that are played by women in the Marvel universe, DC universe, the movies, almost all the time, if they are trying to push a superhero movie that's led by a woman, it almost always flops. Almost always. Now, I'm not saying that if it's you have part of that movie be with some of the women playing the roles. I'm not saying that, like Superwoman, right? I'm not saying that. Like, you have obviously a lot of Superman movies that have Superwoman in it, and it was very successful, but it was led by a man. The story was built around the men as the superheroes, and I think that is a trend that needs to be looked at when it comes to bringing this all the way back to pro wrestling. You can't have people's psychology altered when it comes to how they want entertainment to be presented in our culture, and what's successful and what's not is based on just what's believable at times and what's not. And I think when you have a man's sport be infiltrated by women, it's not a bad thing, but they'll never be at the very top all the time. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I'm not rooting against it. I'm not saying that they can't ever achieve the main event. Of course they can. We've seen it. Becky Lynch was the hottest thing, hotter than any man in the company at the time she was at the top. But that, I think, is going to be more the exception than the rule. And part of that is that WWE just seemingly doesn't have the commitment to the women that they do the men. And the metrics kind of play that out, though. When you look at the minute-by-minute ratings, sometimes the women's segments are some of the lowest rated segments on the show, right? So this is not me rooting against them. This is just a fact. I don't know how I got into this. I really don't. I don't even know where the hell I'm going with this. But my point, the U.S. title. And really WWE's consistency, lack of consistency with the women's division is going to, I think, continue to show itself, because we have a long history of WWE not being consistent with taking the women's division seriously, especially when it comes to secondary championships, not necessarily the top championships, although at times they've been kind of wishy-washy with those. Look what they did with Io Sky's run as SmackDown Women's Champion. I mean, she essentially disappeared for 6 months after she cashed in. So there's been times when even the top titles have been forgotten. There were times during the pandemic era that Asuka was the women's champion and she was gone for months on end and they never said anything and she just didn't get airtime. And it wasn't because she was injured. And there have been times when they've been even a bit disrespectful to the top championships for the women. And I have my doubts. Can you see how I have my doubts that they're going to ever take the women's division seriously to the level of making sure that they get the same attention as the men? I just don't. Now, some of you'll take this as misogyny or whatever. I'm giving you facts. I'm giving you decades of a sample size, okay, of what the WWE has done with the women. Decades. Look what they've done, going back to the late 90s, and what they've done with the women. And yeah, how far they've come, but then kind of gone back. And then there's little blips, but then they've gone back. And then the disrespect of the women's championships, the tag titles being a complete joke. Now they're introducing a new title, but not giving the women more time. And yet, like, a lot of this, it doesn't lend itself to be a great formula for success for the women. I hope it is. I really do. But I'm just looking at what they've done historically. All right. So back to some of the events here from SmackDown. And again, you guys can listen to the full review done by Amanda from the UK. Did a great job this week covering SmackDown. We have the open of the show here. Nia Jax coming into the building with Naomi on the split screen. And we have footage shown of Orton's pile driver injury from from Owens. Well, Cody looked upset and he addressed Kevin Owens and said he had crossed the line as Cody came out, and he had demanded Owens come out to the ring immediately. That didn't happen. And Nick Aldis walked out. He said he knew Cody was angry and he was angry. He mentioned Orton having severe cervical trauma And he said he used a move that was banned in this company for a good reason, and they don't want this generation of stars in wheelchairs for 20 years. And Cody recalled Owens blaming him for the injury and having to recall Randy's wife and loved ones and tell them he didn't know if his neck was broken or if he was going to be okay. First of all, why is that the responsibility of Cody Rhodes? Now, I know it's to create sympathy for Cody and he had to make that call. That's not the job of Cody Rhodes. If it was, he kind of took the job upon himself. And are we supposed to be, I don't know. Again, it's my hatred of his babyface character. But at least he wasn't in a suit this week. That was a plus. It's a very rare appearance where he's not in a suit. But we have Cody telling us that, oh, wow, yeah, I had to make this call to Orton's wife. And not the. First of all, you shouldn't be giving him medical updates. Right? That should be the doctors, medical team, giving the updates. Okay. You are not a trained medical professional. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to create sympathy around Cody's character. I don't buy it. I don't like it. I hate it. But we had Cody get pretty upset with all this and try to tell him, hey, you need to put yourself in my shoes. And what would you do? And he said he wasn't going to wait much longer. Pretty much putting a bit of a time limit on all this before he's going to take things into his own hands, which, by the way, isn't that what wrestlers do all the time? Does he really need the permission of the GM to do this? Does he really? I mean, also, was Orton ever, maybe I'm wrong, because sometimes I miss stuff. Was Orton ever given a slap on the wrist, even for RKOing Adam Pearce a few weeks ago? Did that ever happen? Did anyone even mention this anymore? Or was it all supposed to be forgotten? I'm pretty sure nobody even mentioned anything about it. There was no suspension, no fine. And if there was, that's, I mean, completely pathetic if there's just a suspend or a fine. And then you have Cody Rhodes saying, well, you know, hey, you've only got a certain amount of time before I take things into my own hands. Isn't that what you should be doing anyway? You don't need your permission from the GM to do something that you want to do. I mean, what's the repercussion anyway? What are you going to get? Are they threatening you with suspension if you try to attack Kevin Owens? It's just weird. Anyway, so moving on. We have Cody Rhodes. Oh, TikTok. Stop. All right, B-Fab and Candice LeRae versus Bayley in a women's U.S. title tournament match. This was, I really enjoyed this actually. 10 minutes. That's a nice length for a women's match, something that I think should be more often used than not here. Bayley got the victory in a fun finish here where Bayley dumped LeRae to the floor and stacked up B-Fab for a roll-up victory. Now, I'm not a fan of the roll-up per se, but in this case, I guess it makes sense. And B-Fab in the ring is something you don't get to see a ton of. She's been more of a side character when it comes to tag teams and being a manager. She doesn't get a ton of mic time, in-ring time, so it's nice to see B-Fab. Also, Candice LeRae, the Poison Pixie, I guess, is a nickname they're trying to get to catch on. But Bayley getting the victory, she's the big star here. Having her as the inaugural United States Women's Champion may not be the worst thing in the world. She was the first ever one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions with Sasha Banks, i.e. Mercedes Moné. So this makes total sense. And it would help also legitimize the championship off the bat with a major star being its first title holder. So to me, right now, Bayley's the favorite. But maybe other people can convince me otherwise. So, alrighty. Let's move to the next part of SmackDown here with LA Knight. And he said he's been around the world and everybody is looking for his U.S. championship. And he brought up Sami Zayn asking him to join the Bloodline Civil War. He said it's not his fight. He doesn't care if the Bloodline tears itself apart. Knight said he's got his own prize to worry about. And it wasn't the Logan Paul show because it's defended more than twice a year. He called out the open challenger, and Santos Escobar came out with Legado del Fantasma. And Santos grabs the mic, asks LA Knight why he can't say something cool like Escobar C. And that got a chuckle out of LA Knight. And Escobar mentioned Elektra Lopez having an opportunity to become the first women's United States champion. And he thought it would be a good idea to bring home the U.S. title to his family. Knight drew attention to Berto, who was was staring a hole in him. And Knight said he was staring at him like his head was covered in barbecue sauce and wondered if he was hungry. That wasn't that funny. But Knight told Escobar he'd already beaten him, but he could give Alberto the opportunity of a lifetime. So he get a match. And Berto shoved Knight off the rope, landed a missile dropkick to start the match. And it ended with LA Knight getting the victory over Berto. And it probably should have. Now, I'm okay with Berto continuing to challenge. Legado del Fantasma seems to be kind of the opponents of the last couple of months for LA Knight, and that's cool. But the key here is Shinsuke Nakamura. He has finally moved out of, LA Knight that is, out of the Legado del Fantasma rotation and into a even more serious opponent in Shinsuke Nakamura, who has a little bit different of attire, new face paint. So we'll see what we get with this version of Shinsuke. Like years past, I'd imagine that it is a version that is threatening at first, makes an impact, has some cool promos with some well-done anime art throughout the video packages, but ultimately ends up falling short. I think that is what's going to happen here, as we've seen in years past, but there is the chance if he wants to take the title from LA Knight, he's a more serious contender than anybody else that LA Knight's faced thus far. So this could be fun. This will take us through Survivor Series, likely into December. And if he gets past Shinsuke, I think LA Knight's going to WrestleMania as United States champion and could lose it at that point. But at least a serious contender, and one that has been reinvigorated with not just time off, but also the idea that we can't get promos from Shinsuke has now been completely eliminated, especially what we saw with the world title hunt that he was on with Seth Rollins for a while. So, all right. We get more Bloodline stuff, and then we get Motor City Machine Guns versus the Street Profits for the Tag Team Championships, the Men's Tag Team Championships. This ended with 8 minutes and 22 seconds of a no contest because Tommaso Ciampa ended up intervening, and the match was called off. Gargano ran down to the ring to defuse things. Ciampa shoves down Gargano, and the Guns helped the Street Profits to their feet, and Dawkins took a cheap shot at Shelley anyways, and they left the ring. I mean, not the ending you want here with all the talent in the ring that could produce a really good match, but it was focused around Tommaso Ciampa and his heel turn, I guess, because he was a heel, but then he was kind of a babyface because he was in DIY, and now he's back to being a potential heel. Not a full turn, as he shoves Ciampa, or rather Ciampa shoves Gargano, but no fists were thrown, so it's breaking. It's not the breaking point of that team. I would argue there's no need to do this unless there's a really big plan for Ciampa here, because the tag team division by default always needs help. I say that all the time. Both genders need help. Both the men and women's tag team divisions always need help all the time. You can't have enough depth in those two divisions, and splitting up another tag team, one that is as high quality of wrestlers as those two are, does hurt the division in terms of depth. Unless, again, if you have some grandiose idea for Ciampa, which is possible. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea off the bat. I just hope that they understand, and I'm sure they do, that the tag team divisions are always shallow as it is. And then you're taking a well-oiled machine of a tag team and completely splitting them for hopefully a bigger payoff that they may see with Ciampa, whatever that is. So, all right. Nia Jax versus Naomi for the Women's Championship, the WWE Women's Championship. Nia Jax beats Naomi in 13, nearly 14 minutes. Maybe the longest Women's Championship match Nia Jax has ever been involved in. Decent match, but it ended with Bayley attacking Tiffany Stratton on the outside. Naomi managed to land a split-legged moonsault on Nia for a close near fall as Bayley looked on in shock. She went back up to the top rope. Candice LeRae shoves Nia into the ring post and distracting Naomi. Jax then lands a second rope Samoan drop and an Annihilator for the victory. After the match, Nia celebrates with Tiffany Stratton and Candice LeRae, and that's when we got Roman calling Paul Heyman. So we got a Naomi loss. Did anyone really expect anything else? That's Naomi's calling card. That's Naomi. She's never quite the bride. She's always the bridesmaid. She is, she's always a crowd favorite. They don't give her a ton of mic time. You ever notice that Naomi never gets a ton of mic time? For as long as she's been here and all she's accomplished, it's kind of disappointing they don't give her a ton of mic time because she can come off a little bit obnoxious at times. She does have the mean girl attitude, and her voice, to me, is a little bit of nails on a chalkboard. But if you turn that into a heel character, there's a lot there. There's half of her character they haven't explored. I think if Naomi turns heel, it'll be the best thing for her career. She's been too nice, too goody two-shoes for too long. Naomi needs a change of pace. Maybe this is the thing that does it for her. Maybe she finally snaps. I think the fans would love it, which may turn her into a babyface. They may have a bit of a Becky Lynch syndrome here, where they turn her heel, but it does nothing but turn her babyface. Because the fans, I've seen her for so long not get the position that many people believe she deserves, which is a long run with the championship. She's been women's champion, but it feels like it's been, decades. And I think she was one going into WrestleMania in Orlando, if I'm not mistaken, several years ago for WrestleMania, but it feels like a lifetime ago. And I think there's a whole version of Naomi we haven't seen yet. She's got the mannerisms for it. She's got the voice for it. I think she is a better heel, and we haven't even seen that version of her yet. I could be wrong, but have we not seen every possible version of this babyface? Have we not gotten everything out of this version of Naomi that we possibly can? Do we really need more glow paint? Do we need to have her say glow one more time? Do we need her to dance anymore in her entrances? No, it is entertaining, and it's very visually appealing in a very superficial way. But she's good in the ring, and she's a veteran at this point. Why not see what you can get out of her in the heel portion of things, on the heel side? We haven't even explored it yet. So I think it could reinvigorate her. She feels stale as a babyface character. Definitely not calling for her release or anything like that. Obviously, some people interpret me as saying that. If I find somebody flat, some people interpret it as, oh, you wanting me to fire? No. I'm advocating for the opposite. Just flip her into a bad guy. See what she's got. I think she could do very well. We'll see. I don't think they'll do it, at least in the short term, but that's just my suggestion. Now, on to a little bit of the Raw side of things to go into a quick recap there, as this is the week in review. We had Priest and Gunther in a pretty good heated promo where Gunther showed a little bit of fear towards Priest. Priest showed no fear towards Gunther. We got the street trash line, which is apparently all you need to say to Priest to have him snap. Is you can say anything you want, just don't call him street trash. Just don't say that. Those are the magic words. That's the magic words to get him to snap, is call him street trash. But I really have enjoyed, and I continue to say this, the Priest evolution. It has exceeded all of my expectations. He feels like a top guy. Is he the top guy? No. But he feels like if he's ever world champion again, that it wouldn't be done out of force. It feels like it would be legitimate. He carries himself like a champion. He's got that it factor that doesn't feel forced at all. He does have the natural charisma of a champion. And I'm all for him winning, but not against Gunther. If it was anybody else, because Gunther is just such an anomaly, such a force in WWE right now, that I don't think Priest beating Gunther would be the right move right now. And Gunther only won it a couple of months ago. So we're not at the end, anywhere near, hopefully, the end of Gunther's run as world champion. So we then have Damage Control take on Pure Fusion Collective. And this match was 10 minutes. So there is that it wasn't a 2-minute match. But does anyone give a damn about Pure Fusion Collective? Or for that matter, Damage Control? There needs to be a massive shakeup here. I know that they're two factions. We know nothing about Pure Fusion Collective. Sonya Deville has gotten to do nothing on the mic since her return. And nothing really but lose. And Damage Control feels like it has run its course 2 years ago. That said, if they don't have plans for them on a singles level, then yeah, keep them together, because I don't want anyone's jobs in jeopardy. It just feels a little bit like Damage Control has more than paced its shelf life, and it's time for Pure Fusion Collective to find some kind of identity. I don't know who and what they are, but so Kofi Kingston versus Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne beats Kofi in 9 minutes. Anything that the New Day are going to do right now, they're going to lose because we're waiting on them to implode, which I believe will happen at Survivor Series or shortly after, which is going to be a beautiful thing. And having Kofi Kingston here lose, and after the match, Woods helping Kingston ringside, but Kingston shoving him, it's over. It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful. All right. We have Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins do their weekly brawl, which is just fun. We have then Damien Priest take on Ludwig Kaiser. Damien Priest beats Kaiser in 7 minutes and 40 seconds. We have The Miz put on a bit of a ploy for the Wyatt Six, as he pretended not to be aligned with the Final Testament, only to set them up and put them down. I mean, the Final Testament probably had their best night since the group was formed. So that's I don't know what that's really saying much, but having the Final Testament not do anything for weeks on end or months on end is obviously not good for the momentum of the group, or really a predictor of what could come for the group. And having The Miz add life to this, and kind of a weird pairing here. The Miz and the Final Testament, it's a weird pairing, but The Miz as a heel feels better. Having the Final Testament do something of relevance is good, and having them work with the Wyatt Six for the next couple of weeks or couple of months maybe is nothing but good, really, for both groups, as the Wyatt Six has also kind of fallen into the abyss a bit and in terms of big match feel. You wonder how long they can live on the back of the Bray Wyatt legacy. You wonder how long that they can go before people are like, okay, that was a cool little tribute. But what's next? It needs to have an identity of its own beyond Bray Wyatt, which admittedly is, he's one of the most captivating characters WWE has ever had. Even if I don't really agree with half of his promo style, because it was too much written in code with riddles wrapped in riddles with a riddle on top. And that's me, but I still always respected Bray and loved how he just grabbed your attention on screen. But I don't know how long that they can live on this legacy and off the back of Bray Wyatt. You do wonder. And I hope that it's as long as possible, but they need to kind of find themselves beyond Bray. And I don't know what that means. I don't think it means adding more people. I know a lot of people are looking for Alexa Bliss upon her return to join them. I don't think so. I don't think that was the best Alexa we've seen. Even though she was a nice pairing with Bray Wyatt, she sat on a swing backstage for months and didn't wrestle at all. It felt like 6 to 12 months. She didn't even have a match. So I don't want Alexa Bliss actually to come back here. We also have Nikki Cross. She fills the creepy ring girl lookalike. We have that version. We have a female in there that looks like a character from the girl from the ring. We don't need Alexa Bliss coming back in. I wouldn't say don't do it. Then it's the worst idea in the world. We've been there with Alexa. So I don't know. I don't even know if she's coming back, by the way. I've seen no hints of it. All right. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, which, by the way, they were attacked backstage this past week on SmackDown too, which is always fun. I really enjoyed that, so I didn't have to see the Mean Girl version of the Women's Tag Team Champions. I didn't need to see Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair do their little handshakes or walk around in their sequin outfits and do their little collaborative routine or whatever weird, gestures and sayings that they come up with, whatever it is. We didn't get that. We didn't have to see it. Thank you to Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan this week. Thank you. Again, I will say over and over, get Bianca out. Get Bianca out. She needs to leave this team. If Jade fails, she fails. Experiment needs to come to an end. There. I will say that every week. You guys are going to get sick of me saying it, but somebody needs to hear me that's in WWE. I don't know if anybody from the company listens to the show, What are you doing? How much more do we need to see from Jade? I mean, or rather, the better question is, how much more of Bianca's talent do we need to sacrifice for the potential of Jade? Are we seeing progress or are you guys seeing progress that we're not seeing? Maybe. But from what I'm seeing on screen, which is obviously all I can judge, it's not fair to expect me to see what I can't see. It's time to move on. Jade needs to do her own thing. Don't have a match with those two. It'll totally, I think based on what I've seen, it'll totally blow up Jade because Jade cannot compete on Bianca's level. They may look alike and they're both muscular women. And eventually you want that match. That's a money match. But Jade is nowhere near, from what I've seen, nowhere near ready to compete with Bianca. It would be a total exposure of all of her weaknesses. So I will continue. Bianca needs to leave. Get her the hell out of this tag team. Leave Jade to be Jade. She needs to grow up as a character, not as a real person. I'm not hitting her on a personal level, just as on a professional character level. Her character needs to live on its own. She's been here long enough. She has been here long enough in WWE to find her own way. You don't need her coddled anymore and hidden behind Bianca. A talent that's an otherworldly talent in the ring. That is a polished performer. One of the best WWE has ever produced. And not just WWE producing her, but obviously Bianca herself bringing her, doing her part. I've seen enough. There's nothing more to do with these two as a tag team. We know why they're together. It's to protect the weaknesses of Jade. Because Jade doesn't seem to be able to cut any promo that's beyond like 3 sentences. She can't take the hot tag. From what we've seen, on camera. She is a powerhouse. She looks great, and she's talking about how she smells and showing off her physique, and that's all wonderful, and she does look like $3 million, but enough. This women's division needs Bianca. She is an otherworldly talent. Please, there's no more that needs to be done here. All right, I'm going in circles. Let's move on. All right, so as expected, Bianca and Jade don't lose the titles against Liv and Raquel on Raw. And that's kind of it. So that'll do it for this week in review, guys. I mean, I don't really have much more to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I know that some of the things I say you may not agree with at all, and but I always want to give you guys it straight. I don't come on here and I'm not a shill for WWE. I have my own opinions just as you do, and I encourage you, if you're interested in my other show that has nothing to do with wrestling and everything to do with politics and culture, head out over. It's called The War on Truth. Available everywhere podcasts are available. We're the logo with the laptop and the American flag. That's us. If you want to head on over to Spotify, we're there. Apple Podcasts, we're there. Patreon, we're there at patreon.com/thewarontruth. And you can get an ad-free experience with 7 days for free. We'll be dropping a new episode the next day or so. You can also head on over to Patreon and do the WWE podcast and go ad-free there. So check us out. And I'd appreciate it. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I really do appreciate it. Again, sorry that this is a day late, and hopefully not $1 short, though. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I will talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.